Earthlings, and welcome to the Conspiracy Broadcast Channel. I'm your host, the voice of reason, broadcasting from deep within the heart of Indiana. So, with this episode, I was planning on talking about The Matrix, the movie, and the notion of the Matrix, and those who subscribe to the theory of a simulated reality in which we exist upon or within. But first I'll talk about The Matrix, the movie, and why I didn't like it when I first saw it. I was extremely disappointed. I went in with a bunch of friends back in '99, we took up a whole row, center row. It was like 10 or 12 of us. And I came out really disappointed. Everyone was excited, and I was like, "Man, that was garbage." And I should have just kept my thoughts to myself, because these guys were really excited and stoked on it, and I was not. And and of course they were well within their rights to enjoy it and like the movie, and I wish I had been right there with them, smiling and happy and stoked that I'd just witnessed a great phenomenon at the closing of the 20th century back in 1999. But I wasn't. And before I go into that, what's funny is back then I wasn't into computers at all. I mean, I was when I was younger, but then I wasn't. I was just an unemployed skate bum, I think. Skateboarding and not doing too much of anything else. But now, I watched it recently. The other night, I rewatched it, and I was watching it on, my computer that I built with a Matrix screensaver, and it's not as elaborate as I had before. Previous PC that I built back in New Zealand. And in Australia, because I actually rebuilt it in New Zealand. I just took the motherboard and graphics card and RAM and and all the hard drives, and left the case and power supply back in Australia, but I rebuilt it in New Zealand. And I had like the Matrix screensaver. I had a keyboard which had like a Matrix effect, and I programmed it so it was RGB to match the RGB Matrix screensaver I have. And of course you got RGB lights on machines, and I'm going to try not to build an RGB machine next. But yeah, it was quite funny to see how when I first saw the Matrix, it was at a theater and that with friends, and I wasn't into computers, and now I'm watching it on a computer I built myself, running a Matrix code screensaver and stuff, which I have been for a while. And I've come to appreciate it. It's earned its place in cinema history. It's it's a good movie. For me, it's a cult classic, although it was a instant blockbuster hit. But in my experience, I've sort of The Matrix is a cult classic, and I've just recently come to not recently, but afterwards I came to appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, that's funny to see how computers have really influenced society, and the reason why I hadn't used them back then was because when I was 16 years old, a friend and I, he was 17, he got a job as he was a lift technician, and I was still in high school. But we'd go skateboarding in these parking lots under these high-rise buildings, and send the elevator to the floor below, climb on top. We had a lift key. I'm not going to explain how it all works, but we could send the lift to the floor below, climb on top, manually override the elevator, and get into the office spaces, and lift a lot of computer and video equipment, and we got caught eventually, of course, because we sold one, and they traced the serial numbers. But the cops were like, I had the plainclothes investigators come around, and they were yeah, they were actually surprised and almost admired us, they said, because they were on the case for a year and had no idea it was going to turn out to be a bunch of kids responsible. So it was a pretty weird experience, and that's what kept me off computers for a while. So I wasn't using computers at the time of the Matrix, but now I'm back, and I'm doing things in a legal fashion. So how times have changed. But yeah, the reason I was disappointed in the Matrix was because, well, with the movie The Matrix, was because I'd seen a movie which I believe, and no one would draw the comparison between, but I saw what I believe was it was my choice. It was my favorite. I loved the movie. It came out a year before in 1999. It was the Marvel movie Blade, and no one would really draw the comparison between The Matrix and Blade. But I felt like, although I'm aware The Matrix was based on a comic book, but I feel like if they were to maybe watch Blade and sort of lift a few of the themes and the style and expand upon them and make a movie, you could get The Matrix, And I know The Matrix was, it's a comic book, same as Blade, but there's a few similarities. You got you got some building jumping scenes going on in Blade, slow motion jumping across buildings. They do the same in The Matrix. You got the trench coats, which Blade, he's got a trench coat, and I think the villains in Blade, sometimes they wear trench coats, and then there's like a lobby scene where Blade has to rescue Karen Jensen, the doctor at the hospital, which he, sort of takes in. She gets bitten by a vampire, and he takes her in. Then she gets kidnapped. Later on, Blade has to rescue her, and he just tears up the building lobby to get there to the top level, where she's being held captive, obviously, and he wreaks havoc in there, just blasting his way in, and I think there's some swords flying as well, and security just gets decimated, and of course you got the same thing in The Matrix where they go in to rescue Morpheus. There's an amazing scene where they're cartwheeling around and just blowing things up, and security is getting cut down, and marbles chipping off the walls and stuff, and then they go up to just to get up to a higher level to rescue their their guy, Morpheus. So there's that scene, and then there's the bullet time scene, and they did that in Blade. There's a scene in Chinatown, and it was just done a little more subtly. The head renegade vampire who wants to sort of recruit Blade. He needs Blade to carry out his act. He's trying to resurrect the blood god vampire, and he confronts Blade in Chinatown. He's got a little Chinese girl hostage, and he's sort of taunting Blade and insulting him. Blade's had enough and draws his gun, shoots at the guy, and he dodges, and that's all done in bullet time, which I think is maybe the first instance where bullet time was done, with CGI like that. And he dodges it, throws a girl on the road. Blade has to save her, and the villain, bad vampire Deacon Frost gets away. And it's just done really stylishly. And of course we see that in The Matrix. They got bullet time and stuff. Except they do it a little, I wouldn't say overuse it, but they do it more than they did in Blade. But you got that, and then there's like a scene in Blade where he drops off at the beginning, the woman that he kind of takes in, she's been bitten. She's obviously become aware of the whole reality of the vampire situation and stuff, and I think Blade's got a cop, he's bashing his head against the trunk of the car, and and she's like telling him to chill out, and he's like, look, I think the cop runs away, and because he's working for the vampires, this cop, he's like a familiar or something, and that's what they call him. And Blade says to her, the world you live in is just a sugar-coated topping. There's a real world beneath it. And if you want to survive, you better learn to pull the trigger, or something like that. And, yeah, I mean, if you were to expand upon that theme, in place of vampires kind of running things and living in a sort of an illusion and unaware of the dark forces that are sort of lurking underneath or operating society, you could just create the Matrix, translate it into something else. But, I mean, they were both comic books. Who knows which, I don't know, I mean, inspirations being drawn from everywhere and stuff, but that's why I didn't like the Matrix. It just felt like they ripped a lot of those elements from Blade. But I do like the Matrix now. It's become, it's become one of my favorites, I guess. One of my, I don't know, guilty pleasures, but it's an enjoyable popcorn flick, But in terms, it's funny because, I hear a lot of credible people and that referencing the Matrix and the movie The Matrix when they describe and sort of allude to the notion of us all existing within a simulated reality. And I mean, to me, I don't know if that's gone. Maybe we're being influenced a little too much by movies and that. And I know these movies are great and these themes are great and they do, hold water. They speak to us, and The Matrix was made in a time when movies tended to speak to us rather than speak at us, which they do now. And, they have themes which actually provoke a little bit of thought. And, and that's, I was sort of expecting, living in a time like that when movies did say something, and seemed to actually have value in the way that they provoked more thought rather than, what they seem to be doing now with movies, which is trying to inject thought. You walk out of a movie like 2001: A Space Odyssey and you're left thinking about, contemplating about reality, existence, the universe, and back then even they had artificial intelligence, and of course the possibility of alien life and how it's affected, human development. As we saw at the beginning of the movie, there's the apes and stuff, around the monolith. But it wasn't telling you what to think. It was inviting you more so. And movies tend to do that. But that'll be another topic of discussion for a later episode, I guess. But yeah, I felt like I was, and that's the problem. You shouldn't have going with too many expectations. But I wanted the Matrix to speak to us more about society now, and it maybe expand upon the themes of the control that we're currently experiencing. I mean, the human race has developed this incredibly complex and oppressive economic system, which really prevents a lot of people from living out and carrying out their life in their own unique sort of manifested destiny in the way that we would ideally like to see our lives going. We're bound to a system which doesn't let go. It has you constantly paying for things. The whole, format of subscription services, and just constantly bound to, to paying things. I mean, and to get a house. I work in construction. I'm aware of the costs of materials, the labor, the effort, the skill, and the risk and everything that goes into building a house. But I mean, to have to pay a mortgage off for 40 years for something, that takes you know, maybe a year, or I mean, less than a year. You can build a house in 6 months. I've seen really nice houses go up in very little time, but there is a lot of other costs that go into that, of course. But if we were to live in a cooperative community rather than a competitive environment, which is what modern economics has created, it wouldn't take us 40 years of constantly paying to be able to live in something. And we've developed a standard of living, electricity, running water, and plumbing, and sewage, drainage, and everything else, internet, which we expect to be in our houses. But yeah, I mean, we are bound to a system which really does it does control us. It does manipulate and sort of monopolize our time and efforts more than it should. And that's what I expected from the movie The Matrix, to convey that, like movies, And of course, there's a lot of far-fetched 80s sci-fi that I grew up with, which have themes that are a little bit outlandish, but They Live seems, and it's a little more simplistic, but quite a bit more believable almost than The Matrix. I mean, it's movies like that are the reason why I don't bother voting anymore, or I've never voted in my life, as a matter of fact, because I believe that we're in a system it doesn't give us the choice that it presents that we have. So, in terms of The Matrix, the movie, how I was disappointed, and how people still reference it as, something which we should basically draw, facts and information from, seems a little wild. But, and I know it does, the theme and, the ideas in the Matrix, they do ring true to the current sort of system that we live in, and the oppressive nature of it. But I think maybe we can get a little bit carried away sometimes, and and believing that a movie like that has so much impact, I guess, on culture. And I'll go into simulated reality theories in another episode, but the reason why I wouldn't subscribe to that notion, well, there's several reasons. I mean, imagine going into a children's hospital, confronting a bunch of kids with terminal disease, cancer, and their parents, and telling them, hey, it's just a simulation. You're living in a simulation, Imagine trying to convince those people, the children and the parents. I mean, there's one of two things that you would be saying to them. Either you're just getting the budget discount demo version of reality, and you're not going to be in it for very long, or you're an NPC. I mean, how arrogant and cold-hearted is that? I don't know how you could assume that. I mean, I think that the notion of simulation is a very arrogant and sort of self-centered kind of an idea and perspective on on life, the complexities of life and reality. Because, if you think about that, and if you were to go into a children's hospital, and if you did believe in simulation theory, that's what you would be insinuating to these children and their parents, that their children are either NPCs or they're just experiencing a demo budget version of reality where they don't get to be in it for very long. I mean, that's absurd, really. So I'm sorry to kind of be a a downer on the whole romantic notion of the Matrix and simulation, but it does seem a little too naive, and I think it's just a result of our best technology that we currently have available to us. If you think about it, computers are our best invention in the way they're able to process information, data results, calculations, and of course, we do everything. I don't own a TV. All I need is a computer now. I can do everything. I can do design, animation, record a voice, which you're hearing right now, and I can play games, watch movies. The computer really does do everything. It's a matrix in itself, absolutely. But are we living in a matrix? I don't know. I just think it's a very simple, naive assumption of reality, and it is like organized religion, but it takes the magic out of it. All you're left with is the simulated reality testing, space, and some other afterlife reality in which the operator truly exists. And you're being assessed or judged, but it takes away the mystique and mystery and divine elements out of it. So it's just it all, when you boil it all down, it just becomes something that's not too dissimilar from organized religion, except you take the magic out of it. And I don't I don't subscribe to either of them, but because I wouldn't believe that I have the capacity or the tools to actually find the true results of those things. I think the experience, the concept, and and the whole the whole way that we can observe reality. The phenomenon itself is just too vast and complicated that we would ever have an answer for in any time soon. Computers will become relics in a matter of 50 to 100 years. We'll have a far better means of measuring reality and our universe, and a computer will just be a relic. It would be like us subscribing to the idea that we all live in on a vinyl record, a big vinyl record or something like that. It will be old technology soon, and we'll develop new ideas. Elon Musk might tell you that chances are 1 in a billion we live in base reality, but I just don't think. I think he's just getting away with his own fantasies there and imagination a little too much. I'm not sure it's been very well thought out. There's a lot more things you could do to discover that. And people tend to focus too much on the reasons why more than the reasons why not. And there's a lot of why not reasons too. And that's why and I'll go into this one in another episode, but I wouldn't argue or, subscribe to an organized religion, because I just don't trust another human being to be an authority on the subject of something that's so grand and incredible like that, and that nobody has any concrete proof of, because it's really all just assumption when you boil it down. So we the Matrix, I don't think, is a far off simulated reality scenario where we're all batteries and being used for energy. I mean, it's closer than we admit. It's closer than, it's closer than, I mean, our fantasies and daydreams will allow us to admit, really. It's in the structure and the system that we've created. I don't think it's out there. And that's what it is. These movies are concepts and analogies of reality. They reflect reality, but we we shouldn't get too caught up in the artistic elements of these things. So yeah, I wouldn't believe. Do I think that we live in a simulated reality? I don't. Can I prove it? No, I can't. But neither can modern science and technology. The universe of infinite time and space is just a little too. It's very complicated and vast and very. It's a very incredible phenomenon that I don't think we're ready to even begin to understand, let alone accurately measure it or draw assumptions. I mean, we can entertain notions and fantasies about it, but, I think that it's just far too complex. And I'm sorry about my phone going off, but I need to keep it on in case I get called in for work. Stop it, please. Maybe I need to mute that chat group, which is just work junk. And yeah, that is another example of us living in a system where we're being controlled too much, with being bound and tethered to our phones. I'm going to change that right now, and having them kind of run our lives and stuff. So here's how I'm gonna get around this. Notification sound silent. I'll still hear it vibrate, but it's just something I don't need to hear. And yeah, that's the thing. I think technology is getting on top of us. The things that we've created are really manipulating and controlling our lives more than we're controlling them. It's like Prince said, when the internet and all that was, first kind of starting to blow up, and, he's like, it's okay to get on the computer, but don't let the computer get on you. And that's what we need to understand and learn, is moderation. But yeah, the Matrix is something that we've created with economics, and I want to talk about economics in a later episode, and I want to talk about simulation theory in another episode, but I've covered most of what I wanted to say about it now. But yeah, the Matrix is our system. It's our economic system, our system of governance, our system of trade, our system of basically, transportation, housing, and utilities. We are bound to a system, and I've lived off grid, and I plan to get back out, off grid again, away from it, because I prefer more of a life closer to nature and organic matter rather than the system of technology and gadgets, which I still enjoy and I love, obviously, but there's a balance we need. We need exercise, we need we need transportation, and sometimes it's hard to live that way. I mean, living here in rural Indiana, I need an automobile. It's hard to get around on a skateboard in the country, but and a bicycle. So yes, I guess without going into things and sort of droning on for too long, I should probably end the episode. I think I've covered everything I wanted to there, and there's going to be more things I'll think of, but I need to make this one the definitive discussion on the Matrix, and this will be maybe episode 1 of the topic of the Matrix. But that is my reasons for not subscribing to a simulated reality. The fact that we really are only in our stage of infancy with computer technology, and it just doesn't really sit with me in terms of logic, reason, and why we would be living in such a vast, complicated, complex simulation merely just for the point of being tested to move on to some other, I don't know, task, or maybe we're being held prisoner. But with a theme and a topic like that, I just think we're kind of going into the territory of really, not being able to prove or disprove. So it becomes just a very slippery slope of assumption. So with that, I guess we'll end the episode, and hopefully I'll have you an audience back in the next one. So stay safe, people out there, and just keep an eye out for things. Keep aware. Keep a conscious mind on what's going on in the world. All right. Stay safe.